So, in our chapter in India and Pakistan or Indo-Pak relations, I would like to talk specifically about why India agreed for a ceasefire, or rather what were the compulsions before the Indian leadership to go for a ceasefire in Jammu and Kashmir, even though we were in an advantageous position. That is what in another video I have discussed about Jammu and Kashmir, and I said that even independent experts admit that or acknowledge that India was in an advantageous position, advantage was with India, even though it was not an outright victory. So this particular video or this particular topic is, why did India agree for a ceasefire? Why did India agree for a ceasefire? In fact, Maharaja Hari Singh signed the instrument of accession. Indian troops landed in Srinagar. We airlifted them. That was in October, 27th of October, 1947. 27th of October, 1947. The instrument of accession was, approved by Lord Mountbatten also, and Indian troops were sent to Srinagar. And Jammu and Kashmir became an integral part of India after the instrument of accession. And the fight between the Indian troops and the tribal uprisers or the Pashtuns and the irregular or not regular army, but the Pakistan motivated army, we can say, and we were fighting. Finally, a ceasefire agreement was arrived at, and from 1st January 1949, the ceasefire was implemented, and we can safely say on 5th January 1949 the war ended. The 5th Jan 1949 the war ended. Now, why did we agree for the ceasefire? The UN brokered ceasefire. What were the compulsions before India to agree for this kind of a ceasefire? Now, we even agreed to move the UN, and the UN brokered ceasefire was there. I will talk about the plebiscite and the UN brokered ceasefire. I will be talking about that separately. The UN role I will be talking separately. So there were 4 or 5 reasons according to many experts. Historians have looked into this, and what were the compulsions before India going for this? That's what we are looking. First of all, a very important aspect we should know is the ceasefire decision, or rather our decision to go for UN and the need for a ceasefire decision was taken in the Cabinet Committee on Security. Cabinet Committee on Security. And this Cabinet Committee on Security, today's Cabinet Committee on Security or CCS, is headed by the Prime Minister. And normally the top ministers of the cabinet, foreign minister, the home minister, the defense minister, they are the people who normally participate in the Cabinet Committee on Security. Now, during the war, or rather immediately after 1947, immediately after independence, the Cabinet Committee on Security, which took the decision to agree for a ceasefire, was not headed by the Prime Minister. It was headed by the Viceroy at that time, Lord Mountbatten. Lord Mountbatten was the head of the Cabinet Committee on the Viceroy was the head of the Cabinet Committee on Security. Prime Minister Nehru was only a member of the Cabinet Committee on Security. So, even if Prime Minister Nehru wanted to prolong the war, since he was not heading it, he had to look into the advice and the intention and what is that the British Viceroy wanted to do. That was also a big factor. So today, Prime Minister is whole and soul. Prime Minister can decide whatever he wants, but that was not the situation in 1947, immediately after the partition, immediately after independence. That is number one. Number two, a very interesting aspect, or rather a very a serious aspect which we ignore is, the Indian troops were fighting with Pakistani troops ultimately. Who were the leaders, who were the commanders who were commanding these troops? British army generals or British army officers were commanding both Indian and Pakistani troops. British army officers were commanding both British army officers were commanding both the Indian as well as Pakistani troops. So they already, the Britain has given independence is already there. British officers were, they were busy packing and going back home. They had to hand over the power to the Indian officers. So this transition phase is going on. So this was a transition phase. And during this transition phase, they were asked to fight a war. And that too, not their war. They have no interest. British officers have no interest in the whole thing. What are they going to get? They have to, within a few months, they have to hand over power and go back to Britain. They have to hand over power to Indian officers and Pakistani officers. So at that time, these officers were asked to fight a war. They were commanding. They were, they were the seniors in the army. They were the commanding officers in the army. So naturally, they were not interested in prolonging this war. They somehow wanted a ceasefire. These officers somehow wanted a ceasefire as early as possible because they were fighting somebody else's war and where they had no interest. Britain had no interest. These officers had no interest. They were busy packing and they were thinking of going back home, handing over power. At that time, they were asked to fight it. So naturally, these troops or the seniors were not interested in this war. Somehow they wanted to stop the war. So they were reluctant to fight the war in the first place. That is the second reason. And the third reason is Prime Minister Nehru was an idealist. He wanted to follow idealism in his foreign policy. And his philosophy was that once once we have accepted the Pakistan, there should be a friendly relation with Pakistan also. And moreover, since he was a global leader, he had great faith in the UN system. Great faith in the UN system. And he was a great supporter and admirer of the UN, and even one of the objectives, the principles of foreign policy is faith in the United Nations. So, and UN was an untested organization at that time. UN was an untested organization. And the Cold War did not, the Cold War just began, but the negative effects of Cold War was not very clear at that time. And we had, because what Nehru thought and what our leadership thought was that we were 100% right. India is 100% right and Pakistan is 100% wrong. You go to any neutral arbitrator, 100% we will win. Just see, Jammu and Kashmir joined Indian Union by signing Instrument of Accession, which is, it's an internationally accepted treaty, or rather British Parliament has, accepted it. So, we 100% legally Jammu and Kashmir joined Indian Union, number one. Pakistan is the aggressor. Pakistani troops and the Pakistani supported tribals attacked Jammu and Kashmir. So, Pakistan is the aggressor, number one. Number two, the people of Jammu and Kashmir are 100% with India at that time. And we were even insisting on a plebiscite. We were insisting on some sort of a referendum. And we were 100% sure that if this referendum take place, people will vote for India and we will get 100% vote. If not 100% vote, 90+% of votes will be for joining Indian Union. So people are with us. The local leadership is with us. We in Jammu and Kashmir joined Indian Union through a proper internationally accepted Instrument of Accession, which is even ratified by the British Parliament. So we are legally correct, morally correct, politically correct. Even people, the citizens of Jammu and Kashmir are more than happy to be with India because of the aggression by Pakistan. So we thought we are 100% winning. Any arbitrator will give hands down, within no time, you will be declared India as the winner in this case. That is what we thought. But unfortunately, the Cold War politics, the UN failed to do its duty, and ultimately we did not get justice from UN. That is the second thing. This plebiscite was never happened also, because we were insisting, we wanted a plebiscite after Pakistan withdrawing from the occupied territory, because Pakistan is the aggressor. That is what we demanded, and that is what the UN does. I will talk about that separately. So whatever it is, we had great faith in the UN. The UN was an untested organization. That is why we went to UN. So ultimately we did not. So that is the reason why we went. So three major reasons. One, Cabinet Committee on Security was headed by the Governor General and the Viceroy, and not the Prime Minister, the way it is there today. Number two, both Indian and Pakistani troops were headed by British generals, British officers, not Indian and Pakistani officers. So they wanted to somehow stop the war. And number three, we had great faith in the UN. UN was an untested organization. We were 100% right, and Nehru was an idealist. We were right also, and we knew that we will win if there is a neutral arbitration. 100% India will win. We were 100% sure about that. That is why we went to UN. But today, in hindsight, when you look back from today, we can say that, oh, that was a mistake. We should not have gone. We should have prolonged with the war. We should have persisted with the war. That is what many people may say. But the reality is, in the given circumstance, we did the best at that time. But unfortunately, that best also did not do justice to us. Our good intentions ultimately failed. That's a different story. But otherwise, there is nothing wrong in going to UN at that time in the given circumstances.